The blue waters of Valoria Prime glowed with bioluminescent life as the festival of first light began. Thousands of Valorians gathered in their floating cities, their translucent bodies shimmering with patterns of joy and celebration. They had just discovered something wonderful, proof of other intelligent life in the galaxy. Their scientists had detected artificial signals from distant stars. According to their tradition, they must send a greeting beacon into space, welcoming these unknown neighbors with songs of peace. The lead scientist, Kelvin Shar, supervised the transmission personally. His body pulsed with excited colors as the massive communications array powered up. The message was simple: their planet's location, their biological makeup, and an invitation to share knowledge. It was the same greeting their ancestors had always dreamed of sending, but the translation matrix malfunctioned. Ancient code written generations ago, corrupted during the upload. What should have been a friendly hello became something else entirely when converted to mathematical language. The signal that left Valoria Prime carried a very different message into the darkness between stars. 3 weeks later, and 200 light-years away, Admiral Helena Kovac sat in her command chair aboard the TDS Ragnarok's Fist. The dreadnought hung in high orbit above humanity's fortress world, New Terra. She was reviewing supply reports when the communications officer shouted across the bridge, "Admiral, priority alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. We have an SOS transmission, unknown origin." Kovac straightened immediately. "Put it through." The message played across every screen on the bridge. The translation software worked quickly, converting the alien mathematics into human language. The words made Kovac's blood run cold. Critical threat level. Species extinction imminent. Requesting immediate military intervention. Coordinates attached. We have no defense. They will kill us all. The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew what this meant. Somewhere in the galaxy, an intelligent species faced total annihilation, and they had called for help. "Analysis," Kovac snapped. The science officer worked frantically. Signal originated from a G-type star system. Designation Valoria. Distance 198 light-years. The system shows signs of advanced civilization. Multiple artificial satellites, organized electromagnetic emissions. Population estimate 3 to 5 billion. Time since transmission: 3 weeks, Admiral. Kovac closed her eyes. 3 weeks. Whatever was happening there might already be over. But maybe not. Maybe there was still time. "Get me the Defense Council. Now." The holographic conference assembled in minutes. 12 faces appeared around Kovac's command deck, the highest-ranking military officers in human space. Fleet Admiral Zhang spoke first. "Helena, we've all seen the transmission. This is a first contact situation with an active military crisis. The question is simple: do we respond?" "We have to," Kovac said immediately. "They asked for help." "They're not human," another admiral pointed out. "We have no treaty obligations, no alliance. We don't even know what they look like." Kovac leaned forward. "They're intelligent. They're facing extinction." That's enough. The debate lasted 20 minutes. Some argued for caution, others worried about unknown enemies. But humanity had its own dark history. Earth itself had nearly died during the Void Wars, saved only because the Centauri colonies sent help despite the risks. Finally, Fleet Admiral Zhang made the decision. "Admiral Kovac, you're authorized to take the Ragnarok's Fist and a support fleet to Valoria. Rules of engagement: assess the situation, provide military assistance if needed, and establish first contact protocols. But Helena, if you're walking into something bigger than we can handle, you pull back. Understood?" "Understood, sir." 2 hours later, the Ragnarok's Fist began its journey. The dreadnought was 15 kilometers of weapons, armor, and human determination. It had been built during the darkest days of the Void Wars, designed to fight enemies that wanted to erase humanity from existence. Surrounding it were 23 escort ships, cruisers, destroyers, and carrier vessels loaded with fighter craft. Inside the Ragnarok's briefing room, Kovac addressed her senior staff. Commander Marcus Chen, her first contact officer, stood beside a holographic display of the Valoria system. "We don't know what we're flying into," Kovac said. The transmission was clear: extinction-level threat. That means we go in ready for anything. All weapons will be hot the moment we drop out of FTL. Shields at maximum. Fighter squadrons on standby. "What about first contact protocols?" Chen asked. If the threat has passed, we'll be introducing ourselves with every gun we have pointed at them. If the threat has passed, we'll apologize and buy them dinner, Kovac replied. But if it hasn't, those guns might be the only thing keeping them alive. The journey took 8 days at maximum FTL speed. Every day, Kovac listened to the original transmission again, hearing the desperation in those translated words. She thought about Earth's close calls, about the billions who had died before help arrived. She wouldn't let that happen to another species, not if she could prevent it. On the 8th day, the fleet arrived at the edge of the Valoria system. The Ragnarok's fist dropped into normal space with its weapons armed and shields glowing with power. Every sensor swept the system, looking for threats, for battles, for signs of invasion. What they found was a peaceful planet covered in blue oceans. Thousands of satellites orbited in careful patterns. Cities floated on the water, lit up with bioluminescent beauty. And across every communication channel came music, strange and haunting as the Valorians celebrated their festival of first light. Commander Chen stared at the displays in confusion. "Admiral, I don't understand." "There's no battle. No enemy fleet. No signs of any attack," Kovac frowned. "Then why did they send the distress call?" That's when the deep space sensors began screaming warnings. Something massive was approaching from dark space, moving fast. The tactical officer's voice shook as she read the results. "Contact. Multiple contacts. 847 vessels on intercept course with Valoria Prime. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Configuration matches Devourer Hive Fleet bioships." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew that name. The Devourers. The hive mind species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but barren rock behind. Humanity had fought them once decades ago and barely survived. Kovac understood now. The Valorians didn't know they were in danger. They had sent a greeting to the universe, and the universe had sent them humanity. But the real threat was still coming. She had 3 days to figure out how to save a species that didn't even know it needed saving. The Valorian greeting party approached in small organic vessels that looked more like giant jellyfish than spacecraft. Admiral Kovac watched them through the view screen, surrounded by her bridge crew. The aliens moved with graceful swimming motions even in the vacuum of space, their translucent bodies glowing with beautiful patterns of light. Commander Chen stood beside her, holding his translation tablet. "Admiral, their communication method is complex. They use bioluminescent color patterns combined with electromagnetic pulses. Our AI is working on a translation protocol, but it's going to take time." "We don't have time," Kovac said quietly. "They have 72 hours before the Devourers arrive." The lead Valorian vessel drew closer to the Ragnarok's fist. Even floating beside the massive dreadnought, the aliens showed no fear. Their colors pulsed in rhythmic patterns that the translation software struggled to interpret. Chen's tablet beeped. "Partial translation coming through. They're welcoming us. They say they sent the greeting beacon 3 weeks ago and are honored by our quick response. They want to share cultural knowledge and celebrate our meeting." Kovac felt her stomach drop. "Greeting beacon? Not a distress call?" "No, Admiral. They think we're here for a friendly first contact." The tactical officer interrupted. "Admiral, we're getting better readings on the incoming fleet. Confirmed Devourer signatures. 847 bioships. At their current speed, they'll reach orbital bombardment range in 68 hours. Kovac made a decision. "Chen, you're coming with me. We're going over there to explain the situation, prep a shuttle, and bring weapons just in case they don't take the news well." 20 minutes later, Kovac and a small team boarded the Valorian vessel. The interior was filled with water, requiring them to wear specialized environment suits. The Valorians surrounded them immediately, their bodies flashing with what the translator interpreted as excitement and curiosity. Chen's tablet worked faster now, learning the language. A Valorian who introduced itself as Kelvin Shar seemed to be their leader. The translation came through in halting sentences. "You received our greeting. We are happy. Your vessels are impressive. Are all human ships so large?" Kovac didn't have time for pleasantries. "Kelvin Shar, we need to talk about your greeting beacon. The translation we received was different. We thought you were under attack." Colors of confusion rippled across the alien's body. "Attack? What is attack?" Chen and Kovac exchanged glances. The translator had to be wrong. "Conflict," Chen tried. "Violence. When one group tries to harm another." The Valorian's colors shifted to something the translator couldn't interpret. Other Valorians gathered around, their patterns becoming agitated. "We do not understand these words," Kelvin Shar said. "Harm, we have no concept." "Are you explaining a human cultural practice?" Kovac felt a chill run through her. "You've never had war? Never fought anyone?" "War, fight, still no translation," the alien responded. "Please explain more clearly." That's when Kovac realized the horrifying truth. The Valorians weren't just peaceful. They had never experienced violence at all. Their entire civilization had evolved without predators, without conflict, without any concept of something that wanted to hurt them. And in 68 hours, the most efficient killers in the galaxy were going to arrive at their doorstep. "Kelvin Shar, I need you to listen very carefully," Kovac said slowly. "There are other beings in the galaxy. Bad beings. They consume other species. They destroy planets, and they are coming here." The Valorians' colors flickered. "Consume? Like how we process nutrients?" "No, they will kill your entire species. Every Valorian will die. Your cities will be destroyed. Your planet will become dead rock." The translator went silent for a long moment. When it resumed, Kelvin Shar's colors had shifted to something dark and pulsing. "This is possible. Beings exist that do this?" "Yes, and they're coming here. We detected them." 847 ships, more Valorians crowded around. Their colors became chaotic, flickering between patterns too fast for the translator to keep up. Chen received an alert on his tablet. "Admiral, we're getting a communication from the Valorian government. They want an emergency assembly with you, all their leaders." The next 6 hours were the most frustrating of Kovac's career. She stood before the Valorian assembly, a gathering of thousands projected through holographic water tanks, and tried to explain war to people who had no frame of reference for it. She showed them footage of devourer attacks on other worlds. The Valorians watched in stunned silence as bioships tore through planetary defenses, as cities burned, as entire populations were consumed. Many Valorians' colors went completely dark. Some fainted, their bodies sinking in their water tanks. "This cannot be real," one assembly member said. "Why would any being do this?" "Because they're built to do it," Kovac explained. "They're a hive mind. They don't think like you or even like us. They only consume and reproduce." "Then we will communicate with them," another Valorian suggested. "We will explain that we mean no harm. Surely they will understand." Kovac wanted to scream. "They won't care. They don't communicate. They just attack." "But there must be a way to coexist," Kelvin Shar insisted. "All life is precious. We can find a solution that doesn't involve violence." That word again. Violence. The Valorians were so terrified of the concept that they couldn't even consider defending themselves. "Commander," Chen pulled Kovac aside. "Admiral, we have a problem. The Valorians have no military infrastructure, no weapons, no defenses. They can't evacuate because they only have short-range ships. If we pull out, they're dead. All of them." Kovac looked out at the holographic assembly. Thousands of innocent beings who had never hurt anyone in their entire history. 3 days from extinction. "Get me a secure channel to Fleet Admiral Zhang," she ordered. The conversation with Earth's Defense Council was brief and brutal. Fleet Admiral Zhang's holographic form shook his head. "Helena, you know the rules. The Prime Directive is clear. We cannot interfere in another species' affairs without their explicit request for military intervention. The Valorians never asked for our help. Sir, their greeting beacon malfunctioned. It came through as a distress call, which makes this whole situation an accident. They're not our allies. We have no treaty. And engaging the Devourers means risking human lives for strangers who don't even understand what war is. So we just leave them to die?" Zhang's face hardened. "I'm sorry, Helena. I truly am. But I cannot authorize a military action based on a translation error. You have 12 hours to begin withdrawal procedures." The channel closed. Kovac stood on the bridge of the Ragnarok's Fist, staring at the peaceful blue planet below. Behind her, the crew worked in silence. They had all heard the conversation. Commander Chen approached quietly. "Admiral, the withdrawal course is plotted. We can be out of the system in 6 hours." Kovac thought about Earth, about the desperate days when extinction seemed certain, about the alien allies who had helped humanity survive, even when it wasn't logical, even when it wasn't safe. She thought about the oath she had taken as an officer, to protect the innocent, wherever they might be. "Cancel the withdrawal," she said. Chen's eyes widened. "Admiral, that's a direct violation of orders. They'll court-martial you." "I know." Kovac turned to her tactical officer. Begin deploying gravity mines along the Devourer approach vector. Move the fleet into defensive positions around Valoria Prime. Prep all weapon systems. And send a message to the Valorian Assembly. Whether they asked for it or not, this world is now under Terran protection. The bridge crew stared at her for a moment. Then, one by one, they moved to their stations and began executing her orders. Kovac had just ended her career. But maybe, just maybe, she could save 5 billion lives before they took away her command. The countdown continued, 68 hours until the Devourers arrived. The warning came 12 hours early. Admiral Kovac had just finished reviewing defensive positions when every sensor on the Ragnarok's fist screamed at once. A single Devourer scout ship had dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, moving at incredible speed toward Valoria Prime. "Contact," the tactical officer shouted. "Single bioship approaching fast. It's launching something. Multiple objects analyzing now." Commander Chen pulled up the scan results. Spore pods, 47 of them. They're headed straight for the planet's atmosphere. Kovac knew what those pods contained. Devourer advance units, bioweapons designed to establish a foothold before the main fleet arrived. If even one pod reached the surface, it would release creatures that could reproduce exponentially. Within hours, they would overrun the planet. Time until impact? 12 minutes, Admiral. 12 minutes to save a world. Kovac made her decision in seconds. Helm emergency burn. Put us between those pods and the planet. I don't care what it takes. Engineering, dump all reserve power to engines. Weapons, prepare point defense systems. Kill every single one of those pods. The Ragnarok's fist moved like nothing that large should be able to move. Emergency thrusters fired at full power, burning through fuel reserves at a catastrophic rate. The massive dreadnought accelerated to 0.3 light speed, racing to intercept the falling spore pods. The ship shuddered violently. In engineering, alarms wailed as systems redlined. But the crew held their positions, pushing the vessel beyond its design limits. "Intercept in 30 seconds, the helm officer reported, her knuckles white on the controls. Kovac gripped her command chair. "All batteries fire at will." The point defense systems opened up. Thousands of high-velocity rounds filled the space between the ship and the pods. Laser batteries tracked targets with computer precision. Missiles streaked out, their warheads fragmenting into clouds of shrapnel. Space lit up with destruction. 44 pods exploded in brilliant flashes, but 3 got through, their hardened shells deflecting the weapons fire as they plummeted toward Valoria Prime. "Pods breaching atmosphere," Chen reported. "Impact in 90 seconds. Location, Valoria Prime capital city. Population, 2 million. Kovac slammed her fist on the armrest. "Get me the Marine commander now." Lieutenant Sarah Okonkwo appeared on screen, already sealed in her armor. Behind her, dozens of other Marines were suiting up in what humanity called Reaper gear. 12-foot-tall mechanized combat suits covered in weapons and armor plating. "Lieutenant, 3 pods are landing in the Valorian capital. You have 90 seconds to get your team on the ground." "Understood, Admiral. Launching now." 20 drop pods fired from the Ragnarok's fist, screaming down through the atmosphere like falling stars. Inside each one, a Marine in Reaper armor prepared for combat. They had trained for this. Humanity had fought the Devourers before. They knew what was coming. Okonkwo's pod hit the ground first, slamming into the plaza outside the Valorian assembly building. The impact cracked the stone beneath her. She burst from the pod, her armor's sensors already tracking the enemy. The spore pods had landed 3 blocks away. They were organic things, pulsing and writhing as they cracked open. What emerged made Okonkwo's jaw clench. Devourer shock troops, 8 meters tall, covered in chitinous black armor with limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. They moved on 6 legs, incredibly fast for their size, and they were already killing. A Valorian had approached one out of curiosity, its colors flashing in confusion. The Devourer struck faster than the eye could follow. The Valorian came apart in a spray of bioluminescent fluid. "All units, weapons free," Okonkwo commanded. "Protect the civilians. Do not let those things spread." The Marines opened fire. Armor-piercing rounds tore through the Devourer's shells. Plasma weapons melted through their armor. Explosive rounds detonated inside their bodies. But for every Devourer that fell, something terrible happened. Its corpse would split open and 2 smaller versions would crawl out, already fully formed and aggressive. "They're spawning," one Marine shouted. "Killing them makes more," Okonkwo svore. She had read the reports, but seeing it in person was different. The Devourers were designed to be nearly impossible to stop. Every death made the swarm stronger. Valorians were fleeing in every direction, their colors flashing in panic. They had never seen violence before. Some were frozen in shock, unable to process what was happening. Others tried to approach the Marines, not understanding that the armored figures were trying to help. "Keep firing," Okonkwo ordered. "Push them back toward the landing site. Don't let them reach the population centers." The battle moved through the Valorian capital like a nightmare. The Marines formed a fighting retreat, drawing the Devourers away from civilians. Buildings were shattered by stray fire. The beautiful bioluminescent architecture that had taken centuries to grow was torn apart in minutes. A Devourer broke through the Marine line, charging toward a group of Valorian children. Okonkwo intercepted it, her armored fist smashing into its head with enough force to crater concrete. The creature's skull cracked, but it kept fighting. She fired her plasma cannon point blank into its chest. It exploded in chunks of organic matter. Two smaller Devourers pulled themselves from the remains and immediately attacked. Okonkwo killed them both, and 4 more spawned. The cycle was endless. "Admiral," she called over the command channel, "we can't stop them. Every kill makes the problem worse. We need a different solution." On the Ragnarok's fist, Kovac watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. The Devourers were spreading faster than the Marines could contain them. In another hour, they would overrun the entire city. In 2 hours, the planet, she had one option left. A terrible option. "Chen, prep tactical nuclear weapons. 3 warheads. Yield 2 kilotons each." Chen's face went pale. "Admiral, that's a civilian area. 2 million Valorians live there. I know, we can't just nuke them. It goes against everything we stand for." Kovac's voice was ice. "And letting 5 billion die is better?" Before Chen could respond, the science officer shouted, "Admiral!" "I have an alternative. The cleanser protocol. It's experimental, but it might work," Kovac remembered. Cleanser nanites. Microscopic machines designed to target specific DNA patterns. Humanity had developed them during the late Void Wars but never field-tested them. They were supposed to be able to identify and destroy enemy biological material while leaving everything else intact. Will it work on Devourers? Their genetic code is in our database. I can program the nanites to target them specifically. But Admiral, this has never been tested in combat. If the targeting is off by even a fraction, it could kill the Valorians too. Kovac looked at the tactical display. The Devourers were 30 seconds from reaching the main population center. There was no more time. Deploy the cleanser. Now. 3 missiles launched from the Ragnarok's fist, streaking down through the atmosphere. They detonated above the Valorian capital, releasing clouds of nanites too small to see. The microscopic machines spread through the air, billions upon billions of them, each one programmed to find and destroy Devourer cells. On the ground, Okonkwo saw the Devourers suddenly stop moving. They twitched, spasmed, then began falling apart. Their bodies dissolved from the inside out, reduced to harmless organic sludge in seconds. The nanites worked perfectly, consuming every trace of Devourer genetic material while leaving the Valorians and humans completely unharmed. In 90 seconds, it was over. The Devourer shock troops were gone. The immediate threat was eliminated, but the Valorian capital was in ruins. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were torn apart, and thousands of Valorians stood in shock, staring at the destruction. They looked at the Marines in their massive armor, covered in alien blood, holding weapons that could level cities. One Valorian child approached Okonkwo slowly. Its colors pulsed in a pattern the translator interpreted as a single word. "Monster?" Okonkwo removed her helmet, showing her human face. "Yeah, kid, we're monsters. But we're your monsters now." Above the planet, Kovac received the all-clear from the ground team. The immediate crisis was over. But her sensors showed something that made her blood run cold. The main Devourer fleet had just dropped out of FTL. 847 bioships, each one the size of a city. And they were accelerating toward Valoria Prime. Kovac stood up, her voice carrying across the bridge. "All ships, battle stations. This is what we came for. Show them why you don't threaten species under human protection." The Ragnarok's fist powered up its weapons. Every gun, every missile, every devastating piece of technology humanity had built to survive in a hostile galaxy came online. The real battle was about to begin. The Devourer fleet filled the tactical display like a swarm of locusts. 847 bioships, each one a living weapon grown from captured worlds. They moved with horrible purpose toward Valoria Prime, where 5 billion innocent beings waited, unaware of how close they were to extinction. Admiral Kovac stood at the center of her bridge, surrounded by displays showing impossible odds. Her fleet consisted of 1 dreadnought and 23 escort vessels. The Devourers outnumbered them 35 to 1. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer looked uncertain. "Admiral, the Devourers don't negotiate. They don't even communicate, I know. But this isn't a negotiation. It's a warning." The channel opened. Kovac spoke clearly, knowing her words were being transmitted across the entire system, heard by her crew, by the Valorians below, and by the approaching Nightmare Fleet. "This is Admiral Helena Kovac of the Terran Defense Coalition. The world of Valoria Prime is now under human protection. You have 1 chance to withdraw. Leave this system immediately or we will destroy you." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the Devourer fleet answered, not with words but with action. 10,000 boarding pods launched simultaneously, dark seeds of destruction spreading across space toward the human fleet. "All ships, weapons free," Kovac said calmly. "Show them what happens when they ignore humanity." The Ragnarok's fist opened fire, and the void lit up with the fury of human engineering. Rail cannons fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Each round carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. They punched through Devourer bioships, tearing holes clean through their organic armor. Where the rounds hit, entire sections of enemy vessels simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact. Plasma lances, burning at temperatures found only in stellar cores, carved through the Devourer formation. Bioships that had survived millennia of evolution couldn't withstand that heat. They melted, their organic matter breaking down into clouds of superheated gas. Point defense systems created walls of fire, tracking and destroying incoming boarding pods by the hundreds. But there were so many. Some got through, latching onto human ships like parasites. On the destroyer Vengeful Spirit, boarding alarms wailed as Devourer organisms burned through the hull. Marines responded immediately, meeting the invaders in the corridors. The fighting was brutal and close. Humans and Devourers tore at each other in the narrow spaces, neither side giving ground. Commander Chen monitored the battle reports. "Admiral, 3 destroyers are reporting boarding actions. The Essex is taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Tell the Essex to hold position," Kovac ordered, "and prepare the gravity mines. Let's give these things a surprise." The gravity mines humanity had deployed days ago were one of their most sophisticated weapons, tiny devices that could manipulate space-time itself, creating localized areas of crushing gravitational force. As the Devourer fleet pushed forward, they entered the minefield. The mines activated. Gravity wells appeared throughout the enemy formation, invisible but deadly. Bioships that touched them were crushed instantly, compressed to a fraction of their size. Some were pulled into each other, colliding at speeds that turned them into clouds of debris. The Devourer fleet lost 200 ships in 30 seconds, but they kept coming. That was the terrifying thing about the Devourers. They didn't feel fear. They didn't retreat. They were a hive mind with a single purpose: consume and reproduce. Death meant nothing to them. A cluster of bioships broke through the human formation, making a direct run for Valoria Prime. 3 human destroyers moved to intercept, but they were outnumbered and overwhelmed. The lead destroyer, the Thermopylae, took catastrophic damage. Her engines died. Her weapons fell silent. But her captain wasn't finished. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Thermopylae to all ships. It's been an honor. Tell Earth we did our duty." The destroyer turned, pointing her nose directly at the largest Devourer bioship in the formation. Her emergency thrusters fired at maximum power, accelerating what was left of the vessel directly toward the enemy. The Thermopylae hit the bioship at 300 kilometers per second. The impact released more energy than 100 nuclear weapons. Both vessels were destroyed instantly, along with 6 more Devourer ships caught in the explosion. On the Ragnarok's bridge, the crew watched in silence. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Within seconds, the entire bridge was applauding, honoring the sacrifice of the 300 crew members who had just given their lives to protect strangers. Kovac let them have their moment. Then she returned to the battle. 2 more destroyers are moving to Ram. Get fighters out there to support them, and somebody tell me why the Devourers aren't adapting yet. They are, Admiral, the science officer reported grimly. Their bioships are regenerating faster than we can damage them. And they're learning. Watch this. On the tactical display, a group of Devourer ships began dodging rail cannon fire. They moved in coordinated patterns, their organic hulls splitting apart and reforming to avoid incoming rounds. What had been easy kills minutes ago were now slipping through the human weapons grid. They're evolving in real time, Chen said, learning from every hit we score. At this rate, in another hour, our weapons will be completely ineffective. Kovac checked the casualty reports. 4,000 human crew dead, 7 ships destroyed or crippled, and they had only eliminated 300 enemy vessels. 547 remained, and they were getting harder to kill with every passing minute. The Ragnarok's fist shuddered as a cluster of boarding pods attached to her hull. Alarms wailed throughout the ship. The massive dreadnought, humanity's most powerful vessel, was being boarded by hundreds of devourer organisms simultaneously. Seal all internal bulkheads, Kovac ordered. Marines to defensive positions, and get me a damage report. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 18. The Devourers are cutting through our armor like it's not even there. Marine casualties mounting. On deck 15, Lieutenant Okonkwo and her Marines fought desperately to contain the boarders. The Devourers were different from the shock troops she had fought on the surface. These were adapted for ship combat, smaller, faster, with claws that could tear through steel bulkheads. Fall back to the secondary defensive line, she shouted over the gunfire. Set charges. We'll collapse the corridor behind us. But even as they retreated, more Devourers poured through the breaches. They were losing ground. Kovac made a decision she had hoped to avoid. She opened her command safe with a biometric scan and removed a black data core. It was marked with a symbol that every officer in the Terran fleet recognized. A black sun. The highest classification level. Weapons that were supposed to never be used again. Commander Chen saw it and his face went white. Admiral, no. Not the Stellar Breaker. We swore after the Void Wars. I know what we swore, Kovac interrupted. But tell me another way to win this fight. Tell me how we stop 547 bioships that are adapting faster than we can kill them. Chen had no answer. Kovac inserted the data core into her command console. The Stellar Breaker protocol is a self-sustaining fusion reaction. It will create a miniature supernova using the helium-3 clouds in this system. Everything in a 2 million kilometer radius will be vaporized. That includes most of the Devourer fleet. It also includes the Valorian colony moons, Chen said quietly. Admiral, those moons support 500,000 people, and there's a 20% chance the reaction will destabilize and destroy Valoria Prime itself. I'm aware of the risks. Are you aware you're about to kill the people we came here to save? Kovac's hands shook as she held the authorization key. The Devourers will kill 5 billion if we don't stop them here. 5 billion versus 500,000. That's the math. That's not math. That's genocide. That's war, Commander. This is what it looks like. This is what the Valorians don't understand. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them. Before Chen could argue further, the main display showed something that made the debate meaningless. The Devourer Hive Queen's flagship, a massive bioconstruct 3 times larger than the Ragnarok's fist, pushed to the front of the enemy formation, and it transmitted a message. Broken, halting words in English, learned from scavenged human ships and colonies they had consumed. Your species. Insane. Weapon. Kills all. Kills you. The Hive Queen had recognized the energy, signature building in the Ragnarok's core. She knew what the Stellar Breaker was, and she knew that using it would likely destroy the human fleet as well as her own. Kovac smiled grimly. Finally, the Hive Queen understood. Humanity wasn't bluffing. They were willing to die to protect this world, yes, Kovac transmitted back. We know it kills us. We don't care. This world is under our protection. You want it? You'll have to take it from our corpses. The Stellar Breaker finished charging. The weapon was ready. All Kovac had to do was turn the key. She looked around at her bridge crew, young men and women who had trusted her command, who had followed her into this impossible battle, who would die in the next 60 seconds if she fired this weapon. Not one of them looked away. Not one of them objected. Kovac turned the key. Fire. The Stellar Breaker fired, and for a moment a new star was born in the Valoria system. The weapon released a chain reaction through the helium-3 clouds scattered throughout the region. Fusion reactions ignited, feeding on each other, creating a cascade of nuclear fire that expanded at near light speed. The energy release was beyond comprehension. In 3 seconds, the temperature at the weapon's epicenter reached 100 million degrees. The Devourer fleet didn't have time to react. The bioships closest to the detonation simply ceased to exist. Their organic matter converted to plasma in microseconds. Those further away had a moment to realize what was happening before the wave of fusion fire consumed them. 847 vessels, millions of years of evolution, a hive mind that had consumed dozens of worlds, all of it erased in less than a minute. The Ragnarok's fist caught the edge of the blast wave. The massive dreadnought shields held for approximately 4 seconds before failing catastrophically. The starboard side of the ship, 15 kilometers of armor and weapons, tore away in a shower of molten metal. Entire sections explosive decompression, ejecting crew into the void. The ship's main power core went critical, flooding half the remaining vessel with lethal radiation. Admiral Kovac felt the deck buckle beneath her. Consoles exploded. The bridge filled with smoke and the screams of injured crew. She was thrown from her command chair, hitting the deck hard enough to crack her ribs. Emergency lighting flickered on. Through the smoke, she could see bodies. The tactical officer wasn't moving. The helm was unresponsive. Commander Chen was pinned under a fallen bulkhead, bleeding heavily. "Damage report," Kovac croaked, tasting blood in her mouth. The communications officer, her arm clearly broken, managed to access a functioning console. "Starboard section's gone. Casualty estimate 2,000 dead, 3,000 injured. Main power offline. Life support failing in 17 sections. Admiral, we're dead in space. The Devourers? Gone, all of them." The weapon worked. Kovac closed her eyes. They had won. Had a terrible cost, but they had won. Then the communications officer added something that made Kovac's blood run cold. "Admiral, the Valorian colony moons. Velos and Thren. They were caught in the blast radius. Both moons are showing 0 electromagnetic activity. No life signs. 500,000 people. Gone. Sacrificed to save 5 billion. The next 3 hours were a nightmare of rescue operations. Human ships pulled survivors from the wreckage of destroyed vessels. Medical teams worked frantically in improvised triage centers. The Ragnarok's fist, crippled and dying, used her remaining power to maintain life support for her surviving crew. Kovac sat in what remained of her command chair, watching the rescue operations through a cracked display. She had saved Valoria Prime. But the victory tasted like ashes. A transmission came through from the planet. Kelvin Shar, the Valorian who had first welcomed them. His colors were muted, shocked. "Admiral Kovac, we watched the battle. We saw what you did, what you sacrificed." The alien paused, struggling with words it had no translation for. "We do not understand war, but we understand that you fought for us, that you died for us. Many of our people on the colony moons are gone, but billions remain because of you." Kovac couldn't find words. What could she say? That she was sorry for killing 500,000 of his people while saving the rest? Before she could respond, another transmission interrupted. Fleet Admiral Zhang, broadcasting from Earth, his face was grim. "Admiral Kovac, you are hereby ordered to return to Earth immediately. You will face court-martial for multiple violations. Unauthorized military engagement, use of prohibited weapons, and actions resulting in mass civilian casualties. You are relieved of command." Kovac expected this. She had known the moment she fired the stellar breaker that her career was over. Possibly her freedom too. "Understood, sir. I'll return as soon as the Ragnarok is spaceworthy." "Negative. A transport ship is being dispatched. You will be taken into custody immediately." The transmission ended. Kovac sat in silence, surrounded by the ruins of her command. She had saved billions and would be punished for it. That was the price of her decisions. But then something unexpected happened. The Valorian Assembly, gathering for an emergency session, did something unprecedented in galactic history. They transmitted a formal petition to the Terran Defense Coalition and to the Galactic Assembly, the loose organization of spacefaring species that served as the galaxy's diplomatic body. The petition was simple. Grant humanity guardian status. Recognize them as protectors of peaceful species. Allow them to intervene when worlds face extinction. More importantly, the Valorians testified before the Galactic Assembly. Kelvin Shar spoke for hours, describing the battle, the sacrifice, the humans who had died for strangers. He showed footage of the Marines fighting the Devourer shock troops, of the Thermopylae's ramming attack, of the Stellar Breaker's terrible fire. These humans knew they would die, Kelvin Shar told the assembly. They knew they would be punished for helping us. But they came anyway. They fought anyway. They burned like stars so that we could live. If this is what war is, if this is what violence means, then perhaps it is necessary. Perhaps the galaxy needs monsters who fight for the innocent. The testimony spread across FTL networks. Other species listened. The Helion Collective, crystalline beings who lived in star coronas, the nomadic enclaves, wanderers who had fled their homeworld after a Devourer attack. The Chorus, a musical species that communicated through quantum harmonics. All of them had faced threats they couldn't defend against. All of them had suffered because they didn't understand war. And all of them began installing human-compatible communications arrays in their systems, just in case. The story took on a life of its own. In Valorian culture, Admiral Kovac became the Herald of Fire, a figure who brought destruction to save creation. The Ragnarok's fist became the doom that protects, a ship that wielded apocalypse in defense of the innocent. Human ships began receiving unexpected messages. Thanks from species humanity had never met. Requests for defensive treaties. Questions about military training. The galaxy was learning that while violence was terrible, sometimes it was necessary, and humanity knew how to wield it better than anyone. 3 months later, Admiral Kovac stood before the Terran Military Tribunal. The courtroom was packed with observers, Valorian ambassadors, representatives from a dozen species, human civilians who had followed her trial across every news network. The charges were read: unauthorized military engagement, use of weapons of mass destruction, 8,000 human casualties, 500,000 alien civilian deaths. Kovac pleaded guilty to everything. She didn't try to justify her actions. She simply stated the facts and accepted responsibility. The Chief Justice, an elderly admiral who had fought in the Void Wars, looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke. Admiral Kovac, this tribunal has reviewed your actions in the Valoria system. You violated multiple regulations, protocols, and laws. By every technical standard, you should be imprisoned for the rest of your natural life. The courtroom held its breath. However, the Chief Justice continued, the purpose of our laws is to protect the innocent and uphold our values. Your actions, while illegal, embodied the highest principles of service. You saved 5 billion lives. You established humanity as defenders of the defenseless. You showed the galaxy what we stand for. He stood, and the entire tribunal stood with him. The charges are dismissed. You are reinstated to full rank and command. And Admiral, the next time you decide to save the galaxy, try to get permission first. It makes the paperwork easier. The courtroom erupted in applause. Kovac stood in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Later, back aboard the rebuilt Ragnarok's fist, Commander Chen found her staring out at the stars. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked quietly. We saved billions of lives, at the cost of hundreds of thousands. Chen was silent for a moment. In war, there are no perfect choices, only necessary ones. You made the call. You paid the price, and you'd do it again. Kovac smiled sadly. Yeah, I would. 6 months after the Battle of Valoria, another distress call came in. This one was definitely real. The Kethran species, reptilian beings from a harsh desert world, were under attack by Scourge Raiders. Their message was desperate, their situation hopeless. The Terran response was immediate. The Ragnarok's Fist, now flagship of a new fleet, dropped out of FTL in the Kethran system along with 7 sister ships of the newly christened Apocalypse class. All of them were dreadnoughts. All of them carried weapons designed to end extinction events. Kovac broadcast on all frequencies as her fleet powered up weapons. This is Admiral Helena Kovac of the Terran Defense Coalition. We received your call. We're here to help. The Kethran ambassador, watching the massive human warships deploy, responded with a voice full of emotion. We know your myths, Admiral. We sent the signal hoping you were real, hoping the stories about humans who fight for strangers were true. Kovac watched the tactical display as her fleet engaged the Scourge Raiders. Human weapons, human tactics, human willingness to bleed for others, all working in perfect coordination. The battle was brutal but brief. The Scourge Raiders, expecting easy prey, found themselves facing something they couldn't adapt to. Humans who refused to lose. Commander Chen stood beside her, watching the engagement. Admiral, do you think we're building a reputation we can live up to? Kovac smiled as she watched another enemy ship die to human fire. The Kethrin homeworld was safe. Another species would survive because humanity had answered their call. We don't need to live up to it, Commander. We just need to show up. That's what humanity does. Someone calls for help, we answer. Someone threatens the innocent, we respond. It's not about being heroes. It's about being there when it matters. On the planet below, the Kethrin people watched the battle in their skies. They saw the human ships burning like avenging stars, destroying an enemy that had seemed unbeatable. And they understood something fundamental about the galaxy. There were monsters in the dark, horrors that wanted to consume and destroy. But now there were other monsters, ones that fought back, ones that protected instead of predated, ones that answered distress calls and stood between the innocent and extinction. Humanity had become the galaxy's guardians, not through conquest or domination, but through simple, stubborn refusal to let others die when they could help. The myths would spread, more species would call, more battles would be fought, and humanity would answer, every single time, because that's what humans did.